All right, Campyzy Cast episode 1. Thank you for tuning in. We've got CJ, John, and Braden here today to have a mean conversation.
Let's go.
This guy's the only one who hits the gym apparently, so no one else hit
like
us
it.
with the flex. There we go. There's the first one.
Looks like it.
All right, so we've just got a couple questions here to answer. We're going to answer them however we want because we can. And yeah, so let's go with what do you wish you had known 10 years ago? And that's obviously from a point of now. With COVID being around, with crypto being around, with all that in mind, have a think about it. I think the first thing most people would say would, I would have invested in Bitcoin. Definitely. Anything come to mind for you guys? 10 years ago.
You stole my one. Like, honestly, but I had people offer me in high school. That's when, for me, grade 11. So 2011, people started talking about Bitcoin and crypto, and I just couldn't get my head around it. I didn't understand it at all. And looking back, I just thought, man, if I just bought one, you know what I mean? Let alone back then it was, cents on the dollar compared to what it is now. So, yeah, I always think back on that conversation with my schoolmate who was like the geek, and he knew he was always ahead, and it was, you hear people talk about that, you always think, oh, that's what is that? Like,
Getting scammed, bro.
yeah, that's right, exactly. It's too good to be true. Or I just didn't even understand it because it was a currency, but you couldn't at the time couldn't buy anything with it. So I was like, why would I change real dollars into fake money that I can't even use? Like, what's the point in that? Now looking back, I'm like, oh, it's a commodity that, now with, now I guess the next big thing that's coming out of the works is NFTs.
Yeah. Well, how old were you 10 years ago?
So I was probably more than 2011. So I was in grade 11. I would have been 15.
Yeah, wow.
I'm 26 now.
Yeah. So plus what 15-year-old even
Yeah.
knows how to buy cryptocurrency on any platform, right?
Now, we have, there's so many digital wallets that you can get to buy it. But back then, I had no idea. There's nowhere to start. Like, smartphones were sort of, I think back then it was like the iPhone 5.
Wow.
So it's just like,
wow.
oh yeah, very, very not advanced compared to what we have now. How easy accessible it is.
Yeah, nice. Wow. Anyone else 10 years ago? What are we saying? Me and John would have been quite young 10 years ago.
I would have been
in
10.
the womb still, eh?
Yeah, bro. I was 10, bro.
in the womb. Far out.
10, yeah.
Well, I'd definitely beat you to it.
Swim in that sack.
Oh.
That's it.
It's just anatomy, man. It's how the Lord designed our bodies, man.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't know. Besides like the obvious one, like, invest money better. I mean, it's not like I had that much money back then anyway, but still, like, in hindsight, looking back at what's popping now to what seemed ridiculous back then, it's just like far out. And like that's not even like just to do with money, like just decisions in general. You know what I mean? Like, how old would I have been 10 years ago? How old am I now? I would have been 14. So like,
Bro, you've got some white hairs on your head, so be
just
honest.
wisdom, G. Just wisdom, lad. It's alright, you guys will get some soon.
Okay.
When you've seen the trenches like I have.
The ones you keep going back into.
New rule, don't make a call while someone's taking a sip. Come on.
But just in general, I think like life decisions were like a big one. Because like back then, always tried to sort of excel academically, you know what I mean? And, you put so much pressure on yourself growing up that back then seems like such a massive thing. And then once you hit, end of high school, you're just like, oh, is that it? And you're just like, oh, well, half the time you don't even end up doing what you were studying for anyway, which is me. But it's just like, I wish I would have relieved myself of that pressure back then. could have been a more healthier individual, but you know, that's all speculation.
Yeah.
I'm sure like all that sort of pressure that I put myself under and all those expectations sort of forged me into who I am today. So I don't think I could trade that for anything. But yeah, if I could go back and do something different 10 years ago, if it's not about money, then honestly, I don't think I would change anything. I think they all sort of have a place. But man, if I was rich, bro. Oh gosh, have a nice marble table right here instead of some Facebook Marketplace. Okay, it's clean.
Oh man, throwing shots.
No, well, it's a good point you made early on there. Like when you're that young, because this is making me think about it now, like 10 years ago, the problems you have now compared to the problems you have back then are wildly different. Like what problem for me doesn't 11-year-old kid have compared to a 21-year-old? Like everyone's got problems, right? Everyone's got things that they have to face, and compared to back then, like I don't know if I would change anything. That's another good point. But compared to back then, like my problems were flip. I couldn't beat the challenges on Skate 3 where you have to like break all your bones and stuff, and I couldn't I didn't have like money because I was 10. Like I had to ask mum and dad for money, which obviously one day you're like, oh, I'll get a job, I'll do this and that, I'll get a car, I'll start driving. But yeah, I guess if I would have wanted to know anything, which I wouldn't have even have wanted to know back then, but it would have been nice to just know, would be that right now, this will lead into the next question, but like I don't know, I'd say probably the happiest and proudest I've ever been with my own life and with like, the boys around me and stuff and the communities I'm involved with, work, church, all of that kind of stuff. I'm super grateful, proud, happy, like in a high place. I just feel like I'm in a quality place that I feel like some people, it would take years of seeing psychologists and reading good books to get to a place that I am at. And don't get me wrong, I have done that, but it didn't take as long as, I guess, the average. And there's only one person to thank for that, right? But I would say that, I guess not even knowing where I would be right now, that's what I would have wanted to know. And I guess I would have wanted my family to know then too, because my family dynamic looked a little bit different. Obviously now, like my older brother's married and not living with us anymore. Like he was 4 years older than me when he was living with us, like back then being young and stuff. And like uncles and aunties, cousins and that, like, it would just be good. It would have been good for everyone to know where we're all at. Anyway, that's me. John, what's your...
Yeah, I guess like 10 years, like 10-year-old, like not a care in the world. We have it so good now that we're older. Mm-hmm. We're adulting. But I guess for me, it was kind of like cherishing time with like family. Like with me at that, like when I was 10, I was lucky enough to be living like with my auntie. Like we were like cohabitating with my auntie, and I used to hate it. I used to like, I want to move out. Like, Mum, why haven't we found a place to move out? But like, like as I grew older, I kind of was like, oh, I don't get that time with family anymore. Like,
true.
I don't. True. They're too busy now, or like they have grandchildren now, so that's their like number one priority. So it's like, I guess for me, it's quite simple, but like cherishing the time with the family that you have, because by that time, my brother had moved out. My sister at the time was up in Cairns. Yeah, wow. So I was kind of like the only child for like a year or so. And I guess that's my...
Yeah.
No, that's good. That's good. The family one. How easy is it to just get caught up in like, oh, flip, I'm going to go see the boys, or if you're in a relationship, I'm going to go hang out with my significant other, or I'm going to go do X, Y, Z or whatever, and forget about the people who care about you the most, which is literally, if you're blessed enough to live with mum or dad or both, or siblings and stuff like that. Like, they are the ones that want the best for you, and they might even tell you something that conflicts with your current state of mind, which definitely, like, I've been there before. Just got so caught up in the things that I got involved in and just neglected that for a solid, couple of months there.
Wow.
And this is going to lead into the next question. I feel like you're on the brink of saying something good here, which is, I'm going to say, what's
That's just a quote.
the happiest/proudest moment of your life? But before we get into that, say that quote.
Yeah. So when you were speaking, it reminded me of you guys know Jordan Peterson, eh?
Mm.
Yeah, you would have seen him. You would have seen him. Okay. Like he's that. I don't know. Don't really know how to explain him, but he there's this video that I saw on an Instagram reel, right? And he says that he's like very grateful for the life that he's lived and for the people in his life and everything like that. But he talks about like how he wished he was more grateful for the simpler things, like just the mundane normality of life that he once had, And it's like,
Wow.
I listened to it, I was like, oh, true, hey, because it's like, you look at our lives now, right? Obviously, we have different stories and whatnot, but it's like, I feel like we're always like, with all the problems and stuff and all the stress that's going on in our own individual lives, like what we want the most is just normality. And it's like in the past that sort of seemed like something that was just like, oh, that's boring, that's dumb. But it's just like when you get overloaded with life and things like that, if you lose sight of what normality looks like and how you used to have it, and you just squandered it, like pretty much everything really. I think it's easy to regret a lot of things in life and stuff like that. But the one thing that I know for sure for a fact that I never appreciated was just the normality of life. And I think that's why when you look at the good old days, like back when you were younger, it's like the only reason why you think that is because you just had less problems back then. Life was more normal back then because there was less things throwing it off course and stuff. And it's just like, oh man, like with that sort of mindset, obviously you'd have that perspective looking back, but it's just like, oh, well, what about now? You know what I mean? Like, do I appreciate how normal things are now as opposed to what they'll probably look like in the future when, I don't know, maybe we're international?
Maybe. What do you mean maybe?
Who knows, but stuff like that. And I thought it was amazing. That sort of just jogged my memory, just hearing you speak about that sort of thing. And I was just like, oh, dope.
Yeah. That's so true. What I reckon on that is... that just brings me back to when I was younger. Like, let's say, for example, having problems at home, and I think to myself, man, I just wish I was a kid who wasn't having, and it wouldn't have been a big issue, but I remember thinking, I just wish I was in like a situation, a dynamic here at home that wasn't having these issues that I was having. And I was just kind of thinking the whole time, like, woe is me, like just throughout those periods, that was probably a high school thing. And what I neglected to think was, what about all those people who are wishing for my position right now? Like, what about all those people who are wishing for the hat that I'm wearing right now? Like, middle child, well, not that many people are wishing for the middle child hat, but, at home with mum and dad, got two brothers that are alive and healthy. Parents have got a stable income. We've got the property that we have. Don't mind that noise out there. Sorry, everybody. I'm just hearing that in my headphones. But
I was like,
maybe there's a way we can turn that down here. But that's all good. I never want to take, even now, I never want to take for granted. Like, I'm very careful with what I think about because obviously our thoughts consume a big part of our day. And I never want to take for granted, like, for example, the room that I have, the job that I have, the car that I have, the friends that I have. I never want to say, like, man, this sucks. Like, I wish I just was in a position that didn't have X, Y, Z problems. Because, like, those things, all of that throughout life makes us who we are today. Like, not necessarily the tiny things, but the big things definitely do. So, yeah, I don't want to be someone who's always chasing after another hat to wear. I just want to be happy with the hats that I have, if that makes sense. Yeah, if anyone else has anything to add on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a huge balancing act. Because you also still want to have, you never want to lose drive you never want to just be satisfied with what you have. You know, there's even that, like on the counter side of that, there's that argument where people, what was it? If you're satisfied, then you're dead. Like if you're, you know, so I think, it's this it's this like fine line between, not being ungrateful, but to have gratitude. I think gratitude is so important for what we have, and just having gratitude for the things that we have now, but to not be satisfied and to keep striving forward. Because for us, like complacency is death for humans. You know, if we stop. So it's like trying to have this. This is how it's put for me. Psychiatrists say that. What is it? Now I'm having a mind blank. With, you know, like when you go through a terrible situation or go through grief or loss or whatever, it's very easy to say, oh, well, someone else in the world has it worse than me, so I shouldn't feel so bad for myself. And that's a very bad trap to fall into.
Facts.
Because then on the flip side of that, it's like saying, I can't be happy for something because someone else has it better. You know what I mean? But we do that on the bat when bad things happen. It's like, well, I'm complaining about this, but there's people who are hungry and this and that. And like, I think it's to allow yourself to understand, no, just because your situation is different to someone else, that doesn't mean what you're going through doesn't suck. Like it's still bad. It's still terrible.
That's true. Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, you know, for the things that you do have gratitude and don't think, you know, I should just be happy with what I've got, and that's it. Really, you should always be, you know, striving and moving forward and taking shots and making life of what you will of it. I actually have a question to ask for you.
Oh, okay.
Okay. When we were talking about the whole like 10-year thing, like 10 years ago, what was the, you know, and then you said like you put a lot of pressure on yourself to be something. And as soon as you said that, it triggered a memory of the mindset that I was in back in high school, where I was like, I remember being in grade 11 and 12, and those 2 years, you have to, they pretty much you're able to form, I guess, the start of your path to your career and what you're going to be for the rest of your life. And at least that's what it's made out to be, right? Because you got to choose right prerequisite subjects to know what OP you're getting. Back then it was OP, and what subjects you had to do to get into this uni, to do this course, blah, blah, blah. So it felt like coming to the end of grade 10, you almost had to know what you're going to do for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And that pressure is like so huge for a 14-year-old. And I know what that felt like. And just hearing you say, you know, I wish I didn't put that huge pressure on my shoulders, and looking back now, it wasn't as big as it's made out to be, right? Yeah. So when did that change for you? When did that mindset go like, oh, this isn't the be-all and end-all come the graduation of high school?
Oh, well, honestly, like, because I went to a pretty, like, high-achieving high school, we'll call it, I guess. So, like, that's all everyone ever knew. Like, you were weird if you weren't studying. You know what I mean? All the students would stay after school. Like, we'd finish our school day at 2, and then a lot of us would stay till around 5 or 6 studying in the library or doing, like, extracurricular, like, activities and stuff like that. Wow. So it was, like, a sort of a pressure, but it was a pressure that everyone was carrying. So it wasn't just like, oh, like, you know, you were the weird one for, like, wanting to go hard and study and stuff like that. It was kind of expected. And with that being said, like, all my friends, like, all of us and stuff, we all put that pressure on ourselves. Like, okay, this is it. Like, this is, like, the legit training ground for the rest of our lives. If we mess this up, we're going into the world unequipped and we're going to get smoked, right? Yeah. So that was my mindset, literally all the way up until grade 12, when it got closer and closer to the final exams. I don't know. There's probably some psychological thing behind it. You know, someone could probably tell me that. But the closer I got to D-Day, so to speak, the more my brain started to rationalize that this wasn't the only way, if that makes sense. So like I got to the end of my exams, did not do that well.
Did it try?
Or at least nowhere near as well as I expected myself to do. You know what I mean? And once it was all done, the final blow was dealt, all exams were finished. It was kind of like this realization of like, wow, that was what I've been training for with my studies this entire time. This exam that's felt the exact same as every other exam. Is that it? And then, like, you know, you get your results, like you graduate and stuff like that, and then it's sort of just like you're just like left in this sort of like weird limbo where you're just like, okay, I did it. Like, what's next? And I think the mistake that high school students make, because it's a mistake that I made, was that you completely cut out. So you have this high school period of just studying to your final exams, and all your schooling's finished, where it's not. But you get to this point, and then you kind of forget that there's a whole nother grind part right afterwards to get to the actual place that you're mentally preparing for. That once you get to the end of it, you kind of expect yourself to be like, okay, I'm a doctor now, I'm a lawyer now, I'm an engineer now, because I did well on my high school exams. Then you're just like, oh wait, no, that was just me seeing how far I could push myself academically. Now it's time for me to actually apply it to something more specific. And then that's when you learn the stuff that's going to take you to your career. So obviously you learn stuff in high school. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying ditch high school and become a trainee or something like that. But like, you put this pressure on yourself, like academically, if you're a high achiever, you put this pressure on yourself expecting that these results that you get in high school are the only thing that you're going to be marked on for the rest of your life. And it's like, no, it's not. It's really not. And when you think about it, right? This could be controversial, but who cares? When you think about it, we're all doing the same thing. Say you get an OP1. Your OP1 looks exactly the same as mine, but our whole study experience could have looked completely different.
Yeah.
So it's like when you put in that sort of perspective, oh yeah, I went to a goated high school that's, you know, got heaps of clout. But when you put us in front of a university, they're going to accept people that got the same mark as you, regardless.
Yeah.
You know, you get an OP1 at
Merrimack.
all right.
Yeah.
I'm glad you named it because I didn't want to get any shade from the bros that went to the other schools. But say you got an OP1 at Merrimack. I got an OP1 at QA, which is the school that I went to. It literally looks exactly the same to everyone else. No one cares about your school.
That's it.
So it's like release yourself of this pressure that like, oh, you go to this amazing school, you're in this like excellence program, you're doing all this flash stuff, that when you get to the graduation point, you suddenly get chucked into this massive pool of people that have pretty much done the exact same thing as you, and you're all starting from the same point. So yes, you know, you might have learned a few tips and tricks from, you know, your special high school or whatever, but at the end of the day, you're all going to start at the same point again to study. Whether you go to uni, whether you go to TAFE, or whether you just start in life, in the workplace, you all start at a very similar point, which is usually at the bottom. Now, I don't know if there's any pride issues with that, but that's the sort of thing that the real truth that you swallow that really gives you peace. And I wish I knew that back in the day. I don't know if that would have changed my study motivations or not. It probably would have, but I would have like, just the amount of like sleepless nights I'd get staying up trying to like do my best on like, I don't know, some stupid test that was worth like 10% or something like that. It was worth like peanuts, bro, like out of my whole grade and stuff like that. I wish I would just save myself that hassle and spent more time making the memories that I wish I made back then. You know?
Yeah, that's
you know
a
what I
good
mean?
point.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
good point.
But yeah, that's my take on that.
I like that. I think us Merrimack boys have some
Yeah.
things to add on to that.
Yeah.
Me and John went to Merrimack, for those of you who don't know, and flip, that was I reckon it was a bit of an up and down. But you go. You say what's on your mind.
So, like, I think that for you that's like on a different spectrum, and I'm quite the opposite. I was quite the opposite.
Right.
Like literally, I was like, I'm going to do the bare minimum. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get by.
Including attendance.
He didn't even meet the bare minimum for attendance.
Still
But
graduated.
no one knew.
So yeah, I did the bare minimum. I was like, I'm going to enjoy high school. I'm going to enjoy my time.
Yeah, man.
But I guess, yeah, like it got to a point where, yeah, I got complacent. I got lazy. So yeah, I guess, you know, trying to find that right balance is definitely key. But to be honest, I enjoyed my whole high school experience. It made the people there tolerable.
Oh man, that's a fair call. That really does bring me back to when I was in high school. Those were some of the best memories that we ever made.
Must be nice.
I'm kidding.
Some of the like, first of all, I want to say I'll get to the good memories soon, but straight up, just like, I guess, leadership at the school. You know, I'm talking about principals, head of departments, things like that. Most of them, I won't say all of them, most of them kind of wore their badge as like some sort of a dictator. Like, okay, I'm this, and like, yes, you honor the people, you know, that are in XYZ roles. Not everyone was taught to treat the janitor with the same respect as the CEO, but you know, these people that, at least personally, I experienced that they went around with a bit of a prideful kind of stance. And it wasn't super easy to get to, build any rapport with these kinds of people, or just, you know, I was always the kind of kid in school to, well, not always, up until about grade 10, 11. Oh man, before then I was just like a little rascal in school. I was just like kind of like a teacher's worst nightmare, just talking in class, which is what teachers get up, move to the back, on. We had a room called B10.
Hey, B10.
Which I think now it's called the Reflective Thinking Center now, something like that.
Let's go.
Responsible thinking room.
What's the 3 hours again, bro?
That's it. So yeah, the big bad B10. I definitely got sent there a couple of times.
On your feet.
Yeah, on your feet. Yeah. All right. Oh, we will not mention names there, but he was a good lad.
He is.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is like the leadership of the school, like when you'd be in assemblies or just classes with those teachers that have big responsibilities. Obviously, you know, I try to put myself in people's shoes. So if you're a principal, you want your school to do well. You know, there's probably some sort of government reflection or just thing with other schools that at comparison, like this is how well Merrimack's doing compared to, I don't know, Hillcrest or whatever, just any other school. So there's probably quite a weight on the principal's shoulders and the people, you know, in leadership to be like, all right, let's just get good scores. But I think the way to get good scores and good grades in school is not to just say, hey, if you don't do this, you're going to have a crap life. Because that, honestly, like, that's pretty much what they said to us. They pretty much said, like, if you don't get a certain, what was it again? ATAR or something. Now it's ATAR. OP.
OP.
Yeah,
selection rank.
we were ranked. Yeah. The boys.
Let's go.
If you don't get a good score in that regard, you're just, you know, your life is going to be crap. And then like you'd have the one-off kid in the math class that would be like, where are we actually going to use this? And like I remember the math teacher that we had like had a full-on like 20-minute rant.
Damn, true.
Well, probably not 20 minutes, probably more like a 5-minute, but like no kid wants to hear that. Like, come on, man. I haven't used it once. Like, and I'm in retail at the moment. Like, there's probably so many times that I'll just use simple addition, subtraction, minus, whatever. That was the same thing. That's what it is. But still, I had one of the best high school experiences that you could ask for. And what it was first of all, mum and dad, every time they'd get a report card, obviously when I was younger, they'd take it a lot more seriously. But growing up, they're like, honestly, Ben, if you pass, we're happy. We don't want you to be stressed. We don't want you to have a really bad high school experience. As long as you pass, we're happy. And there were definitely some classes that I was on C- city, definitely, but that's still a pass. So
that's a pass.
And that was the graphics class, which was a great class.
I got kicked out of graphics.
You did get kicked out of graphics, all right. No, he actually wasn't being a bad boy. He was best behaved. He was probably the top of the class, to be honest. You were just very lazy.
Yeah, I didn't. So what I would do, is that I would. It's so bad. So I was pretty good at handing in drafts. Okay, I've got like a good stint of like, all right, I'm gonna finish this. I'll hand it in, and it's good. Like they'll love it. Like this is with all my subjects, but come like I guess time to your final draft. You're like this is it. Like the final notice kind of thing. I wouldn't hand anything in because that was just me. Like it was bad, but like graphics.
Not the blue balls.
So yeah, I guess graphics. They got really annoyed that I kept doing that because they had to mark me off my draft.
Yeah.
And I was.
Were they good though? The
Yes,
drafts?
they were like
Top of the class, hands down. Like you and another guy called Brock. Like literally, hands down, they were the best graphics. Oh, and Doug. Doug was pretty good.
Doug was great.
Doug.
Yeah.
There's a guy called
There's a guy
Doug.
called Doug in your grade?
Yeah, bright red
Get
hair.
held back like 5 grades or something.
Oh man.
No, but
yeah.
no, like it got to the point where it was like, okay, we need this.
Okay, that was a technical difficulty, but we live and we learn. So, yeah, school was a great time. Leadership in it was questionable, but we're here today, and I wouldn't have changed it for the world. Created some very, very good memories. I actually wanted to say another story before we change the subject. Yes, the high school. We could go for hours talking about the high school chat. But pretty much, I was in a home economics class, which was pretty much cooking. You have practical and theory. We hated the theory. You pretty much work down to the cent what the meal costs to make and profits and stuff when you sell it and stuff like that. But
Really?
yeah, it was really it was a unique. I don't know if you ever did home ec, John, but
It was compulsory from like 8 to 9.
yeah, true,
So,
but not for theory.
Not for theory.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was just
yeah,
like- yeah.
yeah. So me and the bro who I mentioned before, Brock, we were pretty tight in that class. Still are, if you're watching, mate. Got to have you on here sometime. But yeah, we were just troublemakers in that class. Honestly, like the funniest flipping story that I remember in that class was, it must have been like, I reckon it was like an end of term or something like that. We're just like the last time we were going to cook or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but pretty much we were making this soup, right? Everyone had this soup to make, and they were pretty straightforward. Like you wouldn't normally go to the teacher and ask for help just because like we were old enough to like know, okay, I know where the ingredients are. They were all at the front of the classroom on the big bench, and I know where the cutlery is. I know where everything, like the pans and pots and stuff like that. And I know like how much time I've got to allocate to clean up all the dishes. So like that was all good. So we were just getting our things, and we were always just rowdy in that class. Like we would do things like anything that would go in a pan, we'd just yeet, like you what? Like for example, a fillet of like a chicken breast, like a what? And chuck it up, and I'd do things like chuck a mushroom in the people opposite me in their pan. Look away, like nothing happened. But with this soup, it was just so funny. We were just adding in every random ingredient we could find. That like there was this staff only area that obviously staff only, but we found our way in there, and we got this taco seasoning. There was like a big container of taco seasoning, and we're like, you know what? There's not even much left in here. Let's just empty it into our saucer, or just into our pan to cook this soup. And we did, and we ended up with like a bright red soup. It was literally like bright red, like this boxing thing. And everyone else's was like a nice, like light beige kind of color, like tasted nice. Ours tasted so bad. It was like a Mexican fusion with like, it was just not good at all. But and our teacher was just, she was losing it. She was like, she wasn't losing it going angry. She was losing it laughing. And I can't remember what her name was, but like, it was just so friggin' funny. We ended up failing that. Not the class, but like we didn't pass that meal. And yeah, it was absolutely hilarious. So, but speaking of food at the moment, that is all something we are on rations on at the moment. Well, rations according to what we're going off. We're all on a fast. That is correct. Are we all? What fast is everyone on? Just to be sure.
I'm not fasting.
You're not fast. Oh yeah, you were sick.
Surely.
Yeah.
I had the Rona.
Yeah, facts. Good to see that you're back. It's all good, but we'll just collect the blessing. What are you on?
You need to. You need it. You're short.
You can catch up now.
I'm overflowing.
Yeah, no, I'm doing the Daniel.
Yeah,
Yeah, same.
yeah. And how's that been?
Well, it was pretty rough. The first Monday.
It's rough. Yeah.
It was my own mistake. It was human error. So I didn't.
Human error.
I accidentally was just faced with a zinger box. Hey,
Smash the steak.
No. So Monday at work, on my 30, I went to Woolies, and in Woolies, you know how Woolies has the kids eat free fruit.
Oh no!
Yeah,
No, I don't know about this.
Yeah, so there's like
It's like tubs,
yeah,
like
tub.
free fruit for like
kids.
kids. For kids though.
Yeah,
And it's free.
Yeah,
it's
like
free.
just bananas and apples and stuff
Yeah.
like that. They can just cop and just munch on the way.
so I'm there doing a bit of shopping, like getting things for me, and I'm just there just munching away on a banana and like apples, but.
Isn't that approved?
For kids, dude.
Yeah, but like that's
Oh,
Daniel
yeah,
fast.
that's Daniel fast.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Wait,
just funny, yeah.
wait, were you eating the kids' fruit or like your own fruit?
Yeah, no,
it was approved,
bro.
but not mine. It was. Say something about your convictions, bro.
Doing the Daniel pass with thievery.
So yeah, it's a funny little story, but come out. I got some blackberries, and I'm eating the blackberries, but I didn't wash them. That was my mistake. I didn't wash them, so throughout my rest of my whole shift, I had like really bad like stomach cramps.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was probably because I didn't wash anything. I could put it like I could blame the fruit that I was eating, from the free bowl.
Get a full rebate.
But yeah, just that whole night, I was like, nah, like this is bad. I went to bed at like 7, cold sweats, and I was like, nah, I can't be getting sick.
Oh,
nah,
no.
I can't. But thankfully, like the next day, like I was all good.
Yeah. Well, lesson learned, eh?
Don't eat it.
You little
Don't
thief.
pinch the fruit. There's some kid now
starving kid.
at that Woolies who's not going to get fruit.
I've always thought about it. Never done it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this guy pinches the actual fruit.
I still go to the cashew section and sneak. Sneak pistachios.
That's funny. Yeah.
How are you going on the fast?
Yeah, right. I done a few, so it's like kind of know the drill. I think my very first fast that I did a few years ago was like, oh, this is weird, because I was looking at everything, all the ingredients and everything. And I was like, oh, I couldn't eat anything, so I just ate fruit. But no, I'm doing pretty sweet. Like, obviously, I want to eat other food, as you do. Like last night, I made some like steak and like mushroom sauce for like my mum and dad and stuff like that. Oh,
Why would you do that?
That's like
they
the
wanted
value
it. That's
test,
the
man.
worst. You know?
That's temptation, bro.
Want to test if you're really about it, then that's what you do. Man.
Yeah.
But I guess temptation is not a sin.
Yeah. How close can you get to it?
That's how I live my life. No.
We know.
They know.
I'm doing sweet. It's all good. Much better than water fast. So.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
What are your views? This will be interesting to get your take on it. You just straight up your view on fasting.
I'm totally against it. So like Jesus did it. No. For me, fasting, it's pretty simple. It's you're robbing your body of something that it wants. That's the whole point of it. And it's not supposed to be nice, and it's not supposed to be pleasurable, and I guess what makes it... So I've done both. I've done water and Daniel. And yeah, like Daniel's like hard and terrible, and it's supposed to be terrible. Like I know Christians will be like, "Oh, how dare you!" But it's terrible. That's the whole point of the fast. Like literally in the scripture, it says nothing nice entered my mouth.
Yeah.
So was it 21 days that he fasted?
Oh, besides Guzman corn chips, eh?
and then
Vegan
curry.
Vegan curry.
that's gonna stir so many people.
Imitation cheese.
Oh, here we go. You know who you are. You know who you are.
Honestly, it's like, man, I could rant about this for so long because not only is it like that where people have found ways to subsidize certain things to make the fast more bearable, which is defeating the point of the fast. Is like it's supposed to be hell. It's supposed to suck, and the whole point is that you you pray and you turn to God in that suffering. That's the whole point. If you're not suffering, then why? You know. But then on the flip side of that as well is like, you know, you're doing it for the right reasons and not to show off. And that's hard when, you know, there's people that aren't doing the fast properly and you're trying not to get righteous as well because they're having vegan curry because Daniel had canned coconut cream when yeah, you know what I mean? I see that. I'm like, you really think that can is not processed at all and he could hunt down and make his own cream like out of a coconut? You know, but then again, see, even me saying that's like, you can't really say that, can you? You know, so it's just tug of war.
Yeah.
So for me, nothing beats the water fast.
Yeah.
And I tell you, like, I've done both. So the Daniel is terrible. It's horrible, and I get it, and people are suffering, and that's the point. But nothing is as bad as the water fast. That was like, and it's so black and white. You can't.
Yeah.
Oh, you know,
compromising there.
Yeah, compromising. Make my own form of bread and this and that, and you can't do that at all. And and of course, it's like a true test of character. Whether you know when no one's home and you're just looking at an apple, and when you've had nothing to eat, like you could devour like the grass outside. It's literally like your own flesh actually starts to turn on you because it's going, you're not feeding me, so I'm going to start playing tricks in your mind. So you start smelling things that aren't there, and it really like proper. So it's like a true test of like flesh and spirit. It's very tough. But to bring it all back, fasting is simply just robbing your body of what it wants, and you've got to, I guess, in suffering, dig deeper into God for what it is you're believing for, or if you are believing for anything, or just intimacy or close to Him, or whatever it is. But yeah, like on paper, that's all it is. So when it comes to, I guess, people doing the Daniel fast, and how do you know if they're compromising or not? It's not even about like, oh, this is organic and this isn't, and that. It's really, it's like, are you suffering, or are you trying to, you know?
It's very true.
Well, if you're already trying to look for where the line is, now close you're getting it, I think don't fast. Like, just pray. Is it, you know? Like, so.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah, we were chatting, me and Brady were chatting about this a couple of days ago, and that is exactly right. Water fast is very, very black and white. That's actually what I'm on at the moment. Haven't had a meal since Sunday lunch, and it's like Wednesday, like afternoon. I don't know what the time is, but
2:47.
2:48. Let's go.
Oh, just changed.
But no, you're right. Like, I did the Daniel fast last year, and I hadn't done a lot of fasts before, but like I think I've done 2 or 3 before that, just the yearly. And it's when I was on the Daniel fast, all I could think about was like the food I was going to eat when I get off of it. Like, because for me, it was very black and white. I wasn't bending any corners and stuff. I was literally just baking potatoes and eating them, like just cooking potatoes and eating them, not adding any oil or salt or anything like that. Just like steaming vegetables, like nothing, just fruit, veggies, and water. And, you know, that was like, you can eat a certain amount to make yourself full, right? To satisfy your body to that extent. But I'll say this first and then I'll get back to the water fast. But doing the fast, right? It's so easy to be like just like that rant that we had, as banterous as that was. when we're boiling it down to why we're doing the fast, that's not what we should be doing. Things like, oh man, that guy eating Guzman corn chips, like who the heck is that? Or that chick making a vegan curry on her Instagram and posting it for everyone to see. Like, you know, that's also their problem. Like, and that's also if their convictions in their heart. Like, I'm not going to let their problem. I'm not going to let that situation take away from my prayer needs at the moment. So this year I've taken it super duper seriously. We were at church on Sunday and I was just sitting in the service, and I felt this massive thing on my heart to just be like, you know what? It's a big sacrifice that your future will thank you for. Do a water fast this time around. And I'm like, all right, I'm in a position where I can do the water fast. I only work retail. It's not very tolling physically. I was a trolley boy though, so which is why I never did the water fast. But in that same way, you pray for God, not only to get you through, but you pray big time into your prayer needs, what the things are that you want to see in your future, things for your family, whatever your needs are. Whatever level of sacrifice you choose to put, that's your choice. But I think it's a massive honor, really, to start the year doing it. The leadership at our church makes it very clear. Let's start the year like this. Let's make sure we've got our priorities straight and we're going to be set up for a win this year. So hats off to you guys for doing that. But yeah, what about this side of the table? What are we thinking of when we think about how this is all kind of going and look at you chivalrous men?
Just clout. That's
Yeah,
As long
I'm
as
only-
leaders are watching me.
I'm just jumping on the bandwagon.
they think I'm water fasting, but
But if only they saw what I was doing at home.
I staked it up before I got here. And all the alcohol I consumed.
Oh, gee.
No, bro, it's yeast, bro.
It's yeast. Yeah, it's hops and yeast. It's all
Hops
yeah.
and yeast.
You go, John.
Yeah, I guess I guess what I think I can add is that, you know, like it's a big thing to, you know, grow sensitive to God in that sense, where it's kind of like, I guess what CJ was saying is like you're fighting between flesh and your spiritual, but you can only turn to you can't turn to man or anything to, you know, satisfy that need. You know, you look to the Lord, and for me, it's kind of furthering that relationship or kind of trusting Him in a sense. Yeah, that's, I guess, all that I have to say.
Yeah, true. Yeah, when it comes to fasting, it's very interesting. Because it can obviously get controversial, it gets real difficult not to judge people that, you know, are I don't know, just having the most gourmet meals, and it's just
Or cooking the most gourmet meals.
it's I'd eat that out of my fast. So it's what's changing here? And I think, now hear me out. I might be ranting, but hear me out. You can also do a water fast and still not fast properly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very true.
And that's the real sort of part that you need to sort of swallow when it comes to fasting, is that it's not so much about how less or how little food you can eat, but more so where your sustenance is coming from, which is obviously what we've been talking about this whole time. And it's the reason, you know, you fast is to give up what your flesh wants to find that satisfaction in your relationship with God instead. And it's kind of like a recalibration sort of, you know, when you fast, it's just you sort of distance yourself from everything that sort of takes your mind and your attention, and you give that to God, which obviously, you know, realistically we should do that all the time, but hey, life has its ways. But yeah, so when it comes to people talking about them fasting, I'm on a Daniel fast, and you know, they're having these 5 Michelin star grilled vegetables on some handmade, I don't know, some fancy stuff, and it's oh man, all you can think at surface level is oh flip, they're not doing it right. But it's oh, who am I to say? And honestly, it doesn't impact me at all. So it's but it, you know, it does get sometimes you're just like, man, you go on all about how you're fasting and all that, and it's just like, oh, you don't know if you're doing it right, but that's just the self-righteousness coming out. But personally, I just think it doesn't matter what you're giving up. I know some people like fasting social media and like technology and games and stuff like that, which obviously, you know, individually that could hold a big part of your life. So that level of sacrifice could look completely different to me. Like, I wouldn't care if I had to give up games. You know what I mean? Like, but someone that's, I don't know, really dependent on that for, I don't know, mental health or whatever, it's like, oh, flip, that could be a massive thing for them. So it's like, when it comes to people talking about themselves fasting, I kind of stay away from those conversations, because it's just like, all it does is, most of the time, all it does is just lead me to like a judging mentality where I don't want it, which I don't want to be in. But yeah, when it comes to fasting, all that matters to me for my personal fast is that I'm replacing what I'm giving up with genuine time with God. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and obviously, like, giving up food is like a physical sort of sacrifice, but I feel like the mental sacrifice is just as important. It's like, oh, like what distractions usually take my mind in everyday life. Like that, those are the more difficult things to give up than food. But food is rough. Daniel fast isn't fun. Obviously, it's not meant to be fun. But yeah, beats a water fast. That's all right. Did it for 3 days, and I was like, oh my days, oh my gosh, leave me be. But yeah, compared to water, yeah, Daniel is a lot more beginner friendly.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
right.
But it's all good.
Yeah, no. Yeah, and, you know, water fasts have their physical things, but you're exactly right. I love what you said, Braden, about it just goes back to your heart's position about when you do it and really pretty much everything goes back to your heart's position. Why did you do that?
Yeah.
What was the reason for it? For me, the reason for it is like my future family, my future wife, future kids. It's going to happen one day, right? My family right now, thank you, Lord, that they're all good. Every one of them, even the ones that live in Italy. I've got my grandparents live in Italy, and they're pastors. And my granddad, which I'm actually yet to have a conversation with him about fasting. But I was talking to my mum earlier today, and she was like, "Yeah, he only believes in the water fast. He doesn't believe in the Daniel fast or anything like that." And I'm like, okay, obviously prefacing with the fact that he's an old school Christian guy. He's obviously an elderly man, but he does have a lot of wisdom. So I'm going to get his take on that. But yeah, I guess speaking of that, it's reminding me, like, speaking of heritage and grandparents and stuff like that, like, I'm super duper grateful for those who went before me, mum and dad, grandparents and all that. And that will lead us to the final question here. We'll wrap it up shortly, but I'm going to ask, how would you like to be remembered? Now, obviously, you guys are all involved in different things. You're a banker, you're in retail, you're pretty much a power lifter. And Gold Coast Best Barber.
That's what I do for money. It's a power lift.
No. That's what you do for money, above the table. But yeah, no, serious question. Like, how would you like to be remembered? And I'm going to go and shoot off here with something, first of all, not like, 'cause this isn't only a question for like when you die, when you get old and when you pass away, how do you want your kids to remember you? Like, it can even be for like right now. Like, I like to be the kind of person that if someone from work, someone from church, someone from home, a friend, someone from all the different scenarios or places or situations, gym, whatever, the checkout person at the shops, like, if they could all say one word about me, I would want that word to be in a similar ballpark, if that makes sense. And I think, like, that's what I was saying earlier. Like, I'm just super proud and super happy to be in this position right now with really good people around me and stuff like that, because that's allowed me to get to a place where, you know what, all of those people probably would say, and like, if you're being honest with yourself, it's a really good thing to reflect on personally. What would they say about you? What would it be? And if they're being completely honest, like, man, he's a bit of a dog sometimes, or like, you know, or like, no, super duper nice guy, I've had a one-on-one with him or whatever. So how I want to be remembered is every one of those people, even if it's on my deathbed, would say the same thing about me. And it would be something that gives them hope, something that they have a conversation with me that isn't like having a conversation with a normal person. Like it does go deeper than the surface for the benefit of that person. Because like, and I have my conversations with people that when I need to get that to that level, that is more than just the surface, and either work things out or get to a deeper place emotionally or whatever. I have those, but I'm also quite sustainable to the point that I can help people who need to get to that point and don't even know it themselves. So that's how I want to be remembered. What about you, lads? I haven't heard from CJ in a while. Go on.
How do I want to be remembered? I don't know. I don't really think about that too much, as like in terms of how I want to be remembered, because I guess for me, one of the biggest reliefs I've come to, like epiphanies that I found, is to not be so focused on what people think about you, or, you know, what they might think about you, or what you want them to think about you. It's a very unsatisfying way to live.
It's true.
But that being said, there are things that I don't want to be remembered for. And I think, I guess having that epiphany, you understand that, you know, you pursue what you want to do with your own life, and it won't satisfy everyone. Some people like it, some people won't. You rub people up the wrong way. That's just the way things are, and I've accepted that. I think what I don't want to be remembered for is, I wish, you know, that was wasted potential. Like, if only he did this, or, you know, he was onto something, but, you know, he tapped out here, or didn't do that. Whether it's, you know, because not everyone's going to want to agree or like your choice of life, or what you stand for, or what you did. You know, if I'm like, I want to pursue a fight career in boxing, like a lot of people could not care less, you know, that you've taken that choice of life. But whatever my choice of life is, I don't want people to be like, I wish, like, you know, he didn't do everything he wanted to do, or he had more to give, or there was more to him, and he just decided to cruise or take the easy way. I think that's what drives me. Even thinking about that now makes me feel so disgusting. Because like the thought of that is like, I know, because as soon as I think that, I immediately know that like 5 things off the top of my head that I know I could be doing better, or I should do, or I'm really slacking or complacent in, and I feel very exposed, and I feel like people who know me know that already. You know what I mean? And you feel like, they know. Like, so for me, I guess it's that, is to not be remembered as someone as that, you know, didn't do all that they were meant to do, whatever it is. And not let anything, I guess, stop me from doing that. Or, you know, I don't know. I think about the high achievers in life that we know of, whether they're big on media and out on the internet or whatever, and I just hear stories from them and like the people that they cross. Like, I think about, I don't know, you guys know who Gary Vee is? Love him. And on his Instagram, he's always talking to people about, you know, pursuing what they love and this and that. And out of all the people that he's come across and impacted, I'm sure there's so many. I know there's so many, but I always wonder about like, whatever happened to that person? What if, like, did they do what they said they were going to do, or they didn't? Or, you know, when they passed away, like what, like, did they do everything? Or was there something that, like, you know, I think about, you know, that old saying, like, on your deathbed is like, you don't regret the things you did, you regret the things you didn't do. And it's like, what am I going to regret on my deathbed? And will people know that?
That's a huge thing. I'm pretty sure everyone watching, and even us here at the table, can think about and give a bit of time to. That's massive. We could spend like hours and hours talking on that alone. The things that But you know what? The thing is that we're at an age where we can do those things, and we can take advantage of the fact that we've got a lot of life left in us. So, yeah. Do you need me to repeat the question?
Yeah, yeah.
So, how would you like to be remembered?
Yeah, well, what a perspective though. Like, that's crazy. Especially like, yeah, like you're on death's bed. Like, what dreams? What haven't you done? What are you gonna regret? You can't go out thinking about that. Yeah. So, I don't know. For me, what I want, like, it's not sort of like something like people will say. It's more so like what like sort of presence I'll bring. You know, like what can just that presence, what can that do in that atmosphere, that room kind of thing? Like, does it bring a sense of peace? Does it bring like a sense of like joy? Like something like that. Like, yeah, that's very simple, but like, to me that, I guess, because I don't really, yeah, like again, what CJ was saying is like, I don't really care what other people say about me, but like, what can I do myself to, you know, be the best me,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say.
No, that's huge. That's a massive thing to think. Like, it's quite a selfless thing to have on your mind, to be like, what atmosphere am I making when I walk into the room? And you personally, you do change the atmosphere. You make it a lot harder. Like, it's nice to see you. It's a genuine, like, and that's a thing that we can all here at this table say. You get a tick there. But you know, it's going to take personal reflection to continue that on, and whatever that looks like. Because a lot of people probably don't even care about that. Like, what it takes to change the atmosphere of a room. It's not just, you know, you and one person. There's quite often multiple people, whether it's work, you know, whatever. It can be any situation. And for someone who wants to be someone who puts joy and peace and all that kind of good stuff in the atmosphere, that's huge. So hats off to you for thinking that. And yeah, that's a really great way to go out. He always brought joy. He always brought this good stuff. Because that's probably something that the world's missing a lot of nowadays. Yeah. What are we saying?
That's an interesting question. I'm along the same sort of like line in terms of like, it doesn't really matter what people think and whatnot. But I think when it comes down to what I want to be remembered as, or who I want to be remembered as, or remembered by, the fact of the matter is, and this is like obviously a perspective I adopted later on in life now, is that everyone in your life is going to remember you differently, no matter what. They could have been, even if they're in your close friend circle, they're going to remember you for different things because of the memories you made with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, rather than me chasing for consistency, which obviously I do want, I want like a common factor to people remember me by. And to keep it simple, I just want to be remembered as a God-fearing man. I want people to hear my name and be like, oh, yeah, he lived for God, for sure. And like, whether they had a positive or negative experience in my life, they knew that for a fact. You know what I mean? So it's like, to keep things as simple as that is basically how I sort of live my life, in terms of like, oh yeah, like I can't control like how people perceive me, how they experience like things or environments that I've been in, and what that's sort of left on them. But what I can sort of control is how much I follow God, and how much that presence itself overflows to the people in my life, if that makes sense. So yeah, I just want to be remembered as a God-fearing man. Obviously, like, I want to be remembered as, you know, a good family man, guy that was loyal to his friends, you know, talk the talk, walk the walk, you know, like all that sort of stuff, like an integral person. But yeah, at the root of it all, I want to leave this earth with everyone who's encountered me knowing that I was a God-fearing man. That's
Yeah.
it.
Wow.
100%. And that goes to the most important person of all. Obviously, that goes to the Lord.
Come on.
He's going to be the one who who sees what you're doing. The scripture says, love God and love people. That's love God first, right? And that's way more than 4 words, but you've explained the love God, love people in everything that you just said, in my opinion. Yeah, this was a good conversation. This was a great conversation. Thank you for all your input. I'm sure multiple people will be impacted by this in a positive light. Thank you for watching, whether it's a morning, afternoon, or evening. I hope you have a good day. Peace.